All right, good morning. My name is Will Morrow. I'm the manager of the MPAS Plus project, and the employer portal is a part of that project. And we have recently published a new manual on how adjustment reporting is going to be working in the future. We're assuming you've all had a chance to take a look at that. We're going to give you a quick overview of it this morning. And then we're going to create an opportunity for you to ask questions. So that's our agenda. Let's see. That's our agenda. We're going to overview it. We are going to go over the schedule in terms of when the new adjustment features are going to be launched, a big chunk for your questions, and just a quick recap of what's coming up next. So the goals for the next version of the adjustment feature on the employer portal, the main goal is just to completely automate that process. There are a lot of manual and semi-automated pieces together. We're going to try to pull everything together and automate it to the greatest extent possible. So it'll be faster for everybody, including faster posting of those adjustments to the member account. We think it'll be easier for you and easier for us to process those adjustment reports. Automating it should reduce errors. It will also standardize the way that adjustment reports are submitted, and also standardize the agency's policies and procedures around adjustments by automating that process. And by automating it, the adjustment payments will work almost identical to the way that the payroll report payments work. And we also want to give you a better manual. So hopefully you've had a chance to look that over. Hopefully it was understandable and usable. But we wanted to give you a nice, easy to use manual that describes the new process. Here is the new process flow. So we'll start with this as just kind of an overview of how the whole thing's going to work. I'm going to use my little Zoom tool here, and we'll just walk through how this new process is going to work. And then we'll dive into the details. So you will have two options for providing adjustment reports. We're just going to call this version 2. All right, so to distinguish the way that you report adjustments on the employer portal now, we'll call that version 1, and we're looking at the version 2 process. All right, so you have two options for providing adjustment reports. There will be a new screen in the employer portal where you can simply type those adjustments in row by row. So if you've just got a small number of adjustments that you want to do, you can just go in there and create those adjustments in a new screen that we'll be providing in version 2. All right. The other option is to provide us with an adjustment report file. That file is a CSV file, comma-space delimited. You can create those in Excel. You can create those in a number of different ways. You've got kind of two here that we've shown. You know, you can go into Excel or Google Sheets or any spreadsheet program and just create that file. It's a very simple file. And the CSV gives you a lot of flexibility. You can see the file. You can manipulate it. You just need to make sure that the columns are in the correct order and that you don't exceed the maximum field sizes. All right, so you can create your file that way. But you can also go into your payroll systems and reprogram them to create that new adjustment file in that CSV file format. So if you're a large employer, you've got you've got Workday or something that can spit those adjustments out for you in a predefined format. Most of those payroll systems are very good at exporting CSV files. So you've got kind of two ways you can create that CSV file. Then you come to the employer portal and you upload it there. All right. So once you've either uploaded or submitted your file through the new screen, then the employer portal is going to validate it just to make sure that the file format is acceptable. The next thing it's going to do, which is a brand new thing, is this version 2 is going to allow you to submit adjustment records that span multiple pay periods. So if you give us an adjustment that is for 6 payroll periods, mute your speaker. The first thing we'll do with that is extract that into individual records. All right. Then we validate everything that's in the adjustment report. If there are errors, we will display those errors and warnings the same way that we do with your payroll reports now. It's going to be very similar. All right. The warnings are just that. The errors have to be resolved. All right. So to resolve those errors, you can either delete the records that have the errors or edit those so that they are no longer in an error condition. You submit, and it will come back and revalidate and move on. You can also just delete the whole report and start over. All right. If you don't have any errors in your file, we're changing our approach on how we review adjustment reports. We're only going to flag certain records that meet certain special conditions. We're hoping that the fraction of records that SRA staff have to review are in the 5 to 20% area. We really want to cut down and only look at really things that specifically need staff attention. All right. So if there are records within your adjustment report that meet our flag criteria, we're going to, on our side of the employer portal, have an application that says, hey, you've got some adjustment records that require a review. All right. If we accept those records after we review it, it's going to move on. We'll talk about that in a second. If we have records in your adjustment report that we've reviewed and we are going to reject those, saying, no, those records are not acceptable, what we do is we remove those rejected records from your report. We put them into their own new little separate report. We tell you all that we've rejected those records, and then you can go look at them and figure out what you'd like to do with those. Maybe you're saying, oh yeah, you're right, that is not correct. And you can just delete that report altogether, or you can go in there and modify those records and resubmit those removed records. But by removing those records, it allows your adjustments to move on, right? So maybe you gave us a report with 100 records in it, and maybe 2 of them got rejected. It allows the 98 to move forward. So what happens with the approved records is the first thing we look at is whether we've got any adjustments for which you did not withhold the contributions. So you reported them as 0 contributions. We will automatically create contribution deficiencies and send a statement to the member. All right, so this is one of those new automated steps, something that's staff here at the agency have to do manually now. We're going to try to automate this piece and notify the member that they have a deficiency and tell them how they can make that up if and when they're ready to do so. Similarly, if it's a negative adjustment for a prior tax year, we're going to refund that contribution back to the member. We have a daily payment system so that we've got a system here that can create those refunds and send those out to the member. Again, this will be an automated step. Everything else, then, we will sum up and create an invoice for you. All right. just like we do on the payroll report. So this is stuff that doesn't go to you. This is stuff that is going to go to the employer, right? And that invoice is either going to be a positive invoice or a negative invoice. If it's a positive invoice, it's just going to notify you that there's an invoice to pay on the employer portal, just like it does on a payroll report. If it's a negative one, we're going to send that ACH credit to you immediately. Just like the payroll reports, for your payments, we wait 3 days and then we post those adjustments to the member account. So this is all automated, all right? So for our staff, really the only activity that they have to do is this review of flagged records. And then for you guys, all you're doing is submitting the report, resolving any errors in the report, and paying an invoice when applicable. So that's the overview. Let's get into a little bit of the details. There we go. All right, some basics about this version 2. So all of this is going to replace what's currently on the employer portal. So now you've got that thing where you upload an Excel and you summarize the contributions due. All of that's going to be replaced by what I just described and what's described in the manual. Like the current process, all of those adjustments, that is anything that's on a prior payroll period, that has to be reported separately, right? So that's going to be how it works moving forward. So in this version 2 process, all of the 714s go away. There's no longer going to be a paper option. There's no longer going to be an Excel file option that doesn't meet this new CSV file format. You only have 2 options. Entering them one by one into the employer portal or uploading a file with adjustments in it on the employer portal. So that new file specification for that new CSV adjustment file is in the manual. We'll hit some highlights of that in a moment. That file can contain 1 record or thousands of records. We don't care. So how many records in there is not going to be a limit for you. So even if you've got a huge salary adjustment based on some sort of a negotiation with a union or something, we can handle that. All right. So this is going to be a very scalable process and solution. And then I did mention that we'll have the feature for multiple prior payroll periods, and that we'll split that up.
Well, we have one question and we have someone with their hand raised. So,
all right, let's stop.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Phil has asked. Sorry if this has been asked already, but is the current space of the limited file going away?
Well, that's the payroll file.
So the current payroll file, which is a flat text file consisting of 250 characters, that file is not going away. So the payroll file is going to be maintained as it currently is. This is a new adjustment file. The goal would be that eventually we redo the payroll file so that also becomes in the CSV and matches to what we are doing here, and maybe even get to the point at which you can report both your payroll and adjustments in the same file, and just have a different code for each of those. So those are kind of future things, but for now, your payroll file stays the same, and then this is just a new way of reporting adjustments. And then we have a hand raised. Clint Walker, you have your hand raised, so if you want to unmute yourself, or I will unmute you if you want, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Glenn, are you able to unmute yourself? It's actually not letting me do it.
I think your system keeps muting me back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I said, my name's Clint Walker. I'm the SAP technical manager for the county. The question I have is, have your mappings been set properly against the SAP metadata? Because we can't change those fields in some situations, and we can't write a bunch of conversion code for those fields. So have y'all went in and changed your meta? Because if I'm remembering, if this is the right call, I think you got some names that are conflicting with some SAP names.
So we're agnostic to where this file is coming from. SAP Workday, we have no way to know where your data is coming from. So if you're producing output from SAP to produce this file, that is on your side of the fence. We don't.
Do you have SAP customers who do this today?
No, sir. There is no existing adjustment file format. There is a template we accept, but there is no formal current file specification.
I think you're not.
This is really the first.
Sir, listen to what I'm asking you, please.
Yes.
Do you have other SAP customers that are doing this today?
I have no idea whether we have employers using SAP to produce 714 Excel files today. We would have no way of knowing that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have currently, we will accept almost any 714 format under the sun. All right. This is our first attempt to standardize a single file format for adjustments. Now, so the current 714 Excel template, there is some overlap between that current template and this new file format. But we did not use the template as the basis for this new file specification. Got another question from Rhonda here. Well, we got a question from Karen. Was this manual sent in an email?
Yeah, I sent an email out a couple weeks ago to anybody who was listed as a user through the employer portal, which also contained the link for this this meeting invite. It's on our public website, so you can find that on our public website under employers. Payroll adjustments, I believe, is where it is. So good, you found it. So that's where everything is located.
Can you resend that to Gordon McLean and Clint Walker, or send it to Jamal so they can send it to us? We don't go on your websites, and we have to evaluate this and get a report back to how we can address this.
Yeah, well, let me see if I can probably post it in the. I'll post it in the chat. A link to where everything is.
Do y'all have engineers that are dedicated to working with the customers on these interfaces if they don't come over clean?
Yeah, we'll talk more about that towards the end of this, in terms of how you can start to prepare for these changes and sandboxes and who you can contact and so on. We'll keep handling some more questions. The question is, can a file include both negative and positive adjustments? The answer is yes.
So that also answers Lisa's question. You will not have to separate those in the future.
Yes, we'll send out the PowerPoint. We're also recording this section. All right, same question on negatives and positives and different pay years. So this will get rid of that complexity in the version 1 solution about having to separate things. You can throw in any year, any fiscal year, any tax year, positives, negatives. You can throw those all into a single file. So that is one of the benefits of the new process. All right, I'm going to move on with the overview, and we've got other question breaks built in here. So thanks. Okay, Next one. All right, there is, so we're going to highlight some of the changes. We are requiring that for every record that you identify what payroll schedule it's associated with. That is necessary for us to be able to split a record that spans multiple payroll periods into individual payroll periods. We have to know what the payroll schedule is for that person to be able to do that, all right? Same thing, we need you to report the payroll period begin date as well as the end date so that we know what the entire span is that we're going to split up for you. We're making a change to the way that the payroll schedules work. Right now, we assign the payroll schedule ID. We understand that in your own payroll system, you might already have your own payroll schedule IDs. We'll let you report those adjustments using your own payroll schedule ID. You'll just have to go into the payroll schedule in the employer portal and map our ID to your ID. So if we call it payroll schedule 123, and in your system you call it XYZ, you just have to enter that XYZ into the payroll schedule in the employer portal so that when you report payroll schedule XYZ, we know how to look it up and do the translation to our schedule 123. So that's only going to matter for those of you that are larger. You've got the payroll system, you want to be able to export out of SAP, for example. If you've got your own payroll schedule ID in there, you'll be able to report those out instead of having to take our payroll schedule and put it into your payroll system, okay? We just finished that feature on our site. We'll be launching it on the employer portal very soon, and we'll let you know when that happens. SSN, you have to have a valid SSN. That person has to be enrolled. We cannot process adjustment records for someone that's not enrolled. So if we don't get a match on SSN, that adjustment record will error out and cannot be included in the adjustment report. So the rest of it, most of the values in the file are in the current payroll file. So we're not going to take time this morning to go through and define each and every field in there. They're the same as what's in the payroll file definition. But if you've got questions about any of that this morning, please let us know and we'll go into more detail there. The manual also includes a lot of examples like how to do a contribution adjustment, how to do a retroactive salary adjustment. We're not going to walk through each and every one of those examples today, but we will certainly answer any questions that you have about any of those examples. And lastly, the manual does describe how to maintain your payroll schedules and how to make payments. That stuff works the same way as your payroll reporting works today. So again, we're not going to go into those details this morning unless you've got specific questions for, that you'd like us to address.
Let's stop there.
Now I want to go over the schedule and then the rest of it's all questions.
Yeah, you're right.
So let me just go over the proposed schedule. We're working on this version 2 stuff right now. So we're actively developing version 2. This fall, as soon as we've got something that's working, we will put it into a sandbox. We will let you all know that the sandbox is available, and you can do your file testing there if creating a new file is what you'd like to do. That sandbox will be available to you, and as was asked previously, when we release the sandbox, we'll also give you contact information on who you can contact with questions about issues that you might be experiencing as you test your file in the sandbox. Shortly before launch, maybe in the November timeframe, October-November timeframe. We'd also like to do a beta test with a small group of employers and actually have you start using the version 2 adjustment process in a production mode so that we can make sure that if there are any bugs in there, that we find those bugs and get them resolved before we do a full-scale launch. So our goal right now is to do the full-scale launch in December. Now, let's handle remaining questions. All right, we've got a question about retro pay increases. So retro pay increases, do we only need to tell you about the time it should have occurred and not collect from the employer, but do we still have the option to collect? I think the answer is that you should collect. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that if you can collect, you should collect. I understand, circumstances in which that may not be possible, but the smoother process is that you collect the contribution for that. But if that's not possible, then we will do the deficiency bill. So either way we can handle it. That's what we'll do. And then what is the payroll schedule value? So if you go into the employer portal now and you go to your pay schedule, you're going to see that there's a pay schedule ID. That is something that is being used internally by SRA and probably something you haven't even noticed. We will need to start using that ID so that we can tie an individual to that particular pay schedule. And then as Will said, we want to give you an option that if you already have a pay schedule ID in your own system, then you can also map that ID to the pay schedule you did when you created that in the employer portal, if that makes it easier for you to do when you're creating the file. So that's what the pay schedule ID is.
And many of you only have a single payroll schedule each fiscal year. So if that's the case, it's just a constant number that you put in there for that whole fiscal year. But it does change each year that you go in there and update your payroll schedule, so that if you're using that, you will have to change it from fiscal year to fiscal year.
All right, and then we'll get Lisa's question. Just to be clear, the changes will not take effect until December, or will we be able to enter adjustments on the site as soon as next week? These will not take place until December. We are in the development process now. So the way that you are currently doing adjustments, please continue to do it that way until we tell you we're ready to launch. So we will make sure that we keep our communication with you ongoing through this process and let you know where we're at. But the target date is December. I'll take the next one. How are negative adjustments being handled with the new process? So the new process can certainly handle the negative adjustments. And it's going to depend on what type of negative adjustment it is. Will we be returning the money back to you as the employer to give back to the member? Or is it something in which we can refund the member those contributions in which were negative? So I see the new process certainly being able to handle the negative adjustments in a pretty smooth manner. So I think we have that worked out. And then with this new format, is there a preference for timing of submission of adjustments? So originally, the question here is the sooner you get adjustments to us, the better, right? There's not necessarily a timing aspect of you have to have adjustments done by a certain time. What is nice about this process is that you can submit adjustments at any time. So anytime you have adjustment, you can go ahead and get that submitted. Again, the sooner the better, because we want to make sure that that data is correct for that particular member. Let's keep in mind something that with My SRPS, which is our secured site for members, and hopefully many of you are members and are using that site, members can get estimates of their retirement at any time. So because of that, they have an insight into their own account, right? So the better, the sooner we get adjustments in, the more accurate that those estimates can be for our members. And I think that that should be our collective goal.
All right, that's all we've got at the moment. We'll have one more chance for questions before we wrap up this. Oh, here's another one. Does the beginning pay period need to be added to the original upload file?
So again, your payroll file does not change. What we're doing here in the adjustment file is we're trying to save you time. We're trying to make it easier for you. So what we want to be able to do is give you the ability that if you have an adjustment that is going to span multiple pay periods, that you don't necessarily have to have that information entered in. You know, if it's going to span 5 pay periods, you don't have to report 5 repeat pay periods. What you can do is give us that information of the hours worked and the salary, etc., and give us that beginning pay period ending date and the ending pay period ending date. And that tells us the range that we're going to apply those changes to. So we think that that is going to be easier and less time consuming by doing that.
All right, good question. The state has when you say the state, I think you're talking about the retirement agency, right? So that's a good question. I think one of the next things that we should do is create some sample files, right?
Yeah, it's something that we can do is create some sample files and get that out to everyone. All right, then we have Zan. Zanvia, I'm sorry, Zan. It's just because we used to work together. I'm going to call her by her short name. Will there be another session to discuss the manual, or should we just compile a list of questions and email them? Right now, I'm not planning to do another one of these sessions time soon, but I think that probably as we get closer and more built out and ready for beta or some type of sandbox, and we'll certainly have meetings at that point. So as everybody's working through the manual and doing stuff on your end, as questions come up, please send them to me. And we will certainly get back to you. And if we realize that we're getting a bunch of questions and we, you know, we can always pop up and do one of these sessions and get those questions answered. So I think we'll be flexible on that. And then Grace has asked, how long will the adjustment, how long will it take for the adjustment to be approved to generate the invoice? So that's a good question. It's really going to depend on, has anything been flagged from that particular file? So if you upload an adjustment file and it passes the validations and none of those records fail, then an invoice will be created immediately. However, if something does get flagged and it requires staff review, then it won't be immediately. Now, I would think that we would be able to, because of the new process and what we think is going to go straight through, then if things do get flagged, I don't think it's going to take too long for staff to be able to get back on that. But I don't necessarily want to put a time frame on it right away. I think we need to kind of see how things are going to go at the very beginning. And then I think after we kind of establish what we're seeing after a couple of months, then I think at that point would be a really good time for us to provide, you know, basically a service level agreement in which we say that adjustments can, you know, will be reviewed within X amount of time. I just don't know what that's going to be yet. And Karen says, what if a mass retro adjustment file needs to be submitted? Do you need to know ahead when this is going to happen? The answer is no. This process is going to be able to handle those mass retro adjustments to the degree that we won't need that heads up. You'll just be able to go ahead and do that.
All right. Richland would like to see the schedule again, so let me go back to the schedule. Get rid of this. So the planned launch is in December. It's now late March. You've got a little more than 5 months. There's also, you know, the file is optional, right? So I can understand how it's going to be beneficial to your larger employers. You don't want to go in there and type these adjustments in one by one. If we find out in the fall that you all are having problems keeping up with this schedule, and you know our schedule could certainly change. This is our plan. Plans often change. If we have schedule issues later this fall, just let us know, and we'll do what we can to accommodate you all. We know for the larger employers, this is a big, you know, it's a big technology change, and sometimes those things can't get done as quickly as we'd like. We certainly know that from our own project. So if you're having problems getting this ready for December, let us know. We'll be as flexible as we can.
Yeah, I just want to point out, while we may not have another adjustment meeting, certainly before we launch, we're going to do training. We're going to do, you know, just like we did with the rollout of the employer portal, we will provide training and information, and you know, we haven't really discussed necessarily what that rollout schedule is going to be because we're not quite there yet, but we will certainly do a trainings for everyone and the sandbox, etc. The important thing I want to point out is, you know, we're partners in this. We want to make sure that the process works well for not only the State Retirement Agency, but for all of you as being employers. We are here as partners with you, so we are here to assist you in working with you whatever issues you may have with this new process. I think that once everything goes online, all of us we'll see major improvements and time savings, etc. So I think we all have a very similar ultimate goal, and hopefully together we can reach that.
This doesn't do transcripts.
No, we are recording this though.
All right, just GoTo doesn't do transcripts, but we'll send out what we've got. All right, I've got one more slide on what's next, and then we can wrap up with additional questions. Okay, so if you want to upload and submit adjustment reports using a file, you can start your development now. That file specification is considered final, where it's not a draft. So if that's the road that you want to go down, now's a good time to get started. You know, if you're small enough that you don't need to use a file, you don't need to do anything. We'll launch this in December, and as Harris said, we'll have a training program so that you know how to use that new feature to create adjustments one by one. If you've got questions, Harris is your man. Here's his email address. He will handle any technical questions as you start to do your file development. As soon as the sandbox environment is ready, we'll let you all know, and you can start testing your files in there. We're also, as we said, we're going to do a beta launch to a small group of employers. We usually do like 10 to 20 employers in that beta when we can. If you'd like to be in that beta program, let Harris know, and we'll get you roped into that. And yep, we're going to email out these slides and video links. And there's one more thing. We are working on a new online enrollment feature on the employer portal. We'll be working on that this fall. It's going to do away with the paper Form 1s. So that also is a very big change, and we need your help. Would like to share with you our design concept, make sure that what we're planning to do is going to be feasible from your perspective. We've started to put together an employer advisory group. If you'd like to be part of that and see those early design concepts and give us your feedback on that, contact Karen Simpson. And we're planning on convening that advisory group in August. We'll show you what we're thinking about, and we'll let you tell us what you think about it and if we need to make changes to that design concept. That is everything that we wanted to share with you this morning. We've got one final opportunity for questions. All right, so as you can see, the employer portal is a living, evolving thing. It's a platform for the agency to continue to improve our business processes and the way that we transact business with all of you. You all have been great partners in getting the employer portal version 1 out, and we look forward to working with you all on this next round of changes. And on a personal note, this is my last week with the agency. My contract with the agency ends next week, so I really enjoyed working on this project with all of you, and I think you're in great hands, and I'm sure you all will accomplish great things after I leave. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.